In the summer of 1944, just a few weeks after D-Day, the Soviet Union pulled off one of the single greatest military deceptions in all of history. Seriously, this wasn't just another battle. This was a meticulously planned strategic heist designed to absolutely break the back of the German army on the Eastern Front. So let's dive into this masterclass of misdirection, Operation Bagration.
So try to picture this. It's June of 1944. The front line stretches for hundreds and hundreds of miles. And right there, smack in the center, bulging out into Soviet territory, is this area they called the Byelorussian Balcony. This is where Germany's Army Group's center is dug in. And they feel pretty secure. But what they don't know is that they are sitting on a strategic time bomb that's about to go off.
That really gets us to the core problem for the Soviets, doesn't it? I mean, how do you even begin to deal with a force like this? We are talking about an army of over 800,000 soldiers. You don't just defeat a force that size. You have to dismantle it. You have to completely annihilate it. And the Soviets, they plan to do exactly that with, well, breathtaking speed. So how are they going to pull it off? Okay, so every great heist needs a target, right? A mark. And for the Soviets, that mark was Army Group Center. Now, on paper, it looked really strong. But in reality, it was dangerously, fatally vulnerable. This right here shows their critical weakness. You see, previous Soviet victories to the north and south had stretched the front line thin, leaving Army Group Center sticking way out in this big bulge, or what military folks call a salient. You can see how this position basically left their flanks, their sides, super long and dangerously exposed. It's like they were sticking their neck out, making them a perfect target to be cut off from both sides. And here's the thing, some of the German commanders on the ground, they saw this coming. General Jordan, who was commanding the Ninth Army, he basically predicted the entire disaster. He knew their static, hold-at-all-costs orders were just a death trap. But his warnings, they completely fell on deaf ears. The German high command just ignored him. And boy, were they about to be outsmarted. All right, let's get into the second act of our heist, the con. And this wasn't just about hiding a few troops in the woods. Oh no. This was an elaborate, multi-layered deception designed to make the entire German command look in completely the wrong direction. The real key to the whole Soviet plan was a concept called Maskirovka. Now, this is a core piece of Russian military thinking. You got to think of it as deception on a truly grand scale. It's about creating a completely false reality for your enemy, making them believe exactly what you want them to believe, right up until the very moment you strike. And this just illustrates brilliantly how it all worked. The German high command was absolutely convinced the main Soviet summer attack would come in the south, against Army Group North Ukraine. So when they saw a bit of a Soviet buildup in the center, they just dismissed it. It's just a feint, they thought. The reality? It was the complete opposite. That massive Soviet force they saw in the south? That was the real feint, all designed to draw German strength away from the true target, the supposedly safe Army Group Center. So, how did they sell this incredible lie? Well, they openly paraded powerful tank armies around in the south for the Germans to see. They transferred a staggering 88% of their tanks away from the Central Front to reinforce this illusion. Meanwhile, back in Belarus, a massive buildup of over 1.6 million men and thousands of tanks was happening under the absolute strictest radio silence and camouflage. And the Germans? They took the bait completely. Hook, line, and sinker. With the Germans totally looking the other way, it was time for the takedown. The con was over, and the heist was about to reach its violent and just stunningly effective climax. The Soviets didn't just throw men at the line. They used this sophisticated doctrine called deep battle. And you can see the steps right here. Step 1, an unbelievable artillery bombardment to just shatter the German front. Step 2, infantry punches through those holes. And then, and this is the genius part, Step 3, the armored reserves pour into the gap, not to fight at the front, but to race deep into the enemy's rear, encircling and destroying entire armies from behind. On June 22nd, the plan roared into motion. In the north, Soviet forces just smashed through the German lines around Vitebsk. In just 2 days, they had surrounded 28,000 German soldiers and ripped a 25-mile-wide hole clean through the front. The northern pincer of the trap was now in place. At the very same time, a second massive assault slammed into the German lines further south. This southern pincer was designed to pin the German Fourth Army in place, preventing any kind of escape. The jaws of the trap were closing.
fast. And because of that incredible deception, the Germans had almost no mobile reserves to counter this huge attack. The few panzer divisions they did have, like the 20th, were just thrown into the meat grinder, but were simply overwhelmed. They were too little and way too late.
And this is the moment the trap slams shut. Those Soviet armored columns, which had broken through days earlier, they raced towards each other and met just west of Minsk. In one move, they trapped the entire German Fourth Army and what was left of the Ninth, over 100,000 soldiers in a gigantic pocket. And on July 3rd, Minsk was liberated.
Think about that. In just 12 days, one of the Wehrmacht's 3 main army groups on the entire Eastern Front had been, for all practical purposes, erased from the map. It was a collapse of almost unimaginable speed and scale. So what was the final score from this operation? What was the take from the heist? Well, the numbers, they are simply staggering, and they completely changed the strategic course of the war in Europe. Let's start with the final German casualty count, around 450,000 men, killed, wounded, captured. To this day, it remains the single greatest military defeat in German history. 28. That's how many German divisions were effectively destroyed. I mean, 19 of them were so completely shattered they just ceased to exist. Gone. And the collapse went right to the very top. Of the 47 German generals commanding on that front, 31 of them were either killed or captured. The leadership was completely and totally decapitated. And to put all of this into perspective for you, everyone knows the name Stalingrad. It's famous. Well, the German High Command itself admitted that the losses during Operation Bagration were, and I'm quoting here, far worse. That tells you everything you need to know about the scale of this catastrophe. The destruction of Army Group Center just tore a 400-mile gap in the German front, and with nothing left to stop them, the Red Army poured through, liberating city after city that had been under brutal occupation for 3 long years. And the ultimate result? Well, the advance didn't stop at the border. It carried the Red Army all the way across Poland to the banks of the Vistula River, putting them within striking distance of Berlin itself, and really sealing the fate of the Third Reich. In the end, Operation Bagration proved that the most powerful weapon isn't always a tank or a plane. Sometimes it's a perfectly told lie. It was a heist of trust, of intelligence, and of strategy, which really leaves us with a pretty interesting question to ponder. Where else in history has a single, calculated deception had such massive, world-altering consequences?